Hi, this is Christian Aldo responding for the video post for English 242 for week 4. Professor Barr asked us to discuss what are we taking away from the novel Daisy Miller, what was the purpose, what was our personal interpretation of the events and the role of women in the story, and how does it reflect what is going on historically in the U.S. during this period. All right, so let's start out at the end here. Um, During this time, this post-war era, during the Civil War, post-Civil War era, is known as the Gilded Age. And during this time, we see the rise of some very powerful families and that become very affluent. And uh, and um, and so when you become that affluent and money is not a problem anymore, of course, one of the tendencies is to start traveling and to become a cultured person of the world. And so that's kind of what I guess Mr. Winterbourne's family did by I guess the entire family became expatriates, moving to different parts and moving around Europe, and uh, and then as well as the Millers going over to Europe. And it seems like this whole community is very tight knit, but not necessarily they all like each other. But and so Mr. Winterbourne is just new to this entire experience and has doesn't really is not really experienced where he may be socially um, he's not socially awkward by any means, but he doesn't necessarily know the social landscape that he's entering going to Vevey, Switzerland, and Geneva. Um, he's going to visit his aunt because he believed that's what he should have done. You know, it's just to go be a good nephew and go visit his aunt. And so the story starts out immediately, which he's um, sitting on a pristine lake in Vevey. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And the coastline of the lake is has hostels and very exquisite and elegant hotels and everything like that. And uh, and he comes across a boy, the little boy, which is Daisy Miller's little brother, and his name is it's left me, but he comes asking for sugar from uh, from Mr. Winterbourne from Winterbourne, and come to find out he's kind of just a little rapscallion and a little rambunctious little child that doesn't respond to rules very well, and then we kind of see that in Daisy as well, and she's like seems like she's an acting out teenager almost, and we never really find out how old Daisy Miller really is. One thing is for certain though, what we see is that um, the Millers, her little brother, Daisy's little brother, and Daisy have a mother that's not really there mentally with them. She just kind of has her own uh, little opinions in the world, but doesn't uh, press herself to make her kids do anything. There's no discipline there. So I don't believe that her input really mattered. And then they come from affluency, but dad's not really in the picture. I guess he's in America doing business stuff. So here we got these two kids who are largely unsupervised and come from means, which I don't think is necessarily a good thing. We don't see that Daisy's little brother was even educated at all. He's not going to school or anything, and who knows if Daisy was educated, considering the times and females, I guess, weren't all didn't uh, didn't receive education as much as a male would, and weren't expected to go to university or anything like that. And that would come later on in the following post World War II. But anyway, so what we see is highly flirtatious Miller. I'm sorry, Daisy Miller. Uh, Mr. Winterbourne sparked up a conversation with her in the beginning of the novel, and she just plays him hard to get the entire book, and that's kind of just the basis of what this is all about. we come to find out that Daisy is she doesn't really care about history or anything. She's not doesn't care to be cultured. It seems like she just was just born into wealth, and um and so, but she is attractive nonetheless. She wears all the clothes of a rich person. She can achieve the look, but I don't think that I think everybody knows and all the expatriates know that that they're not cut from the same cloth necessarily. But Winterbourne wants to believe that she is capable of class and dignity, but come to find out by the end of the story, he's just disillusioned with the entire thing. But there's still a part of him that wants to say, "Yeah, Daisy Miller's a great girl. She's nice. She's capable of everything that that um, I'm sorry, his aunt, Mrs. Uh, uh, I'm so sorry. Well, Winterbourne's aunt, if it comes to me, I'm sorry, Mrs. Costello. Yeah, Mrs. Costello, immediately tells him, "What, are you kidding? You want to be with this girl? Don't you know?" And of course, Winterbourne doesn't know. So let's talk about Daisy for a little bit and her background. There's loads of sexual innuendos throughout the book. Uh, if I can spot the one out that I really noticed that was stuck out to me when they were talking about going rowing, and it was just so obvious. But anyway, uh, and I don't know if anybody else thought this, but I don't. I think that I would put Daisy Miller as underage, or maybe 17 or 18, and then Mr. Eugenio, who is their butler, who Mrs. Costello says actually has more class than the Millers. Um, I think that uh, there might have been some sort of sexual misconduct between the two, and I'm putting Mr. Eugenio at about in the 30s or 35 or so. And I think she might have been taken advantage of early on in life, and this might have led to deep psychological disorders, depression, or just sexual promiscuity and stuff like that that we see. And we don't necessarily ever see that she had sex with anybody in the story, but I think there were various points where um, the it was alluded to the fact that there had been something going on between Mr. Eugenio and Daisy, and that's kind of why I think that Mr. Eugenio, this is the way it kind of played out, had a thing with Daisy, and then her new thing in Vevey was Winterbourne, and so where she was playing with Winterbourne and Vevey, and then Mr. Eugenio was looking from the outside and just very upset. That kind of all switched when they went to Rome in Italy, where now she had her new Italian friend, and Winterbourne was on, kind of the outside looking in, and so this drove him to infatuation and obsession, which ultimately resulted in her own death um, when she died at the hand of malaria, and she never, and they refer to it as the Roman fever in this. Excuse me. And Winterbourne wants to believe that it is Mr. Giovanelli's actual. It was because she was with Mr. Giovanelli that she caught the Roman fever. When in reality, was it really because of that? No. Was it because of promiscuity? No, probably not. But it's kind of just the whole scandalous, kind of like maybe the whole controversy surrounding AIDS um, is that you know very what I'm trying to say is that only promiscuous people get AIDS. That's not true, you know. So anyone that participates in acts where there can be somebody can be transmitted with AIDS can get AIDS, and the same thing is kind of for malaria here. Um, and so what we see is by the end of the story, she receives the malaria, and everybody kind of writes it off as, well, she had it coming. And by the end of the story, Mrs. Costello has a real "hey, I told you so" moment with Winterbourne, and still when uh, Winterbourne still holds on even after her death at the end of the story that, hey, I think she really loved me and I believe that she was a good girl when she was never really meant to be perceived as a good person. She wasn't an interesting person. She wasn't necessarily a bad person either, but uh, she didn't couldn't contribute anything to the world in a meaningful way. And uh, and so that's kind of where the story ends. And it's just about Daisy Miller is just about an expat in Europe and craving an American girl, and while the Gilded Age is going on in America, and that ultimately escapes him, and severe disappointment comes upon her death. But anyway, this has been week 4 of English 242, and it's been a pleasure reading Daisy Miller. And oh, one more thing, I had to say what women's role in this story was, and I believe that the women were given the very few male characters, and basically all the male characters had something to do with chasing after a woman or sexual in a sexual nature, and the women all played different facets of archetypal characters within I guess a female community where we have a promiscuous girl, a very conservative aunt, a socialite of her day, and just have different playing these different themes off each other. But anyway, all right, everybody have a good week. It's been a pleasure. This is Chris Ronaldo. Have a nice afternoon.